Guest has studied Lebanese politics extensively and tweeted this reaction to the new government. Quote, after 13 months, Lebanon finally has a new government with little new about it. With minor exceptions, it was formed by the very politicians vilified and rejected by the popular protests which toppled two previous cabinets. Hezbollah still looms large directly and through allies. Firas Maksad joins me now from Washington. Now, you are not mincing your words there. Let's be frank, I don't think anyone expected anything different. Is this, though, a Prime Minister who has done enough to convince those that could help Lebanon out? Because, quite frankly, it's not helping itself at the moment. So has he done enough to convince France, the US, the IMF and others that this is a government that they can work with? Because that is where the action starts, isn't it?
Becky, it's wonderful to be back on your show. Thank you for having me. I think the answer to that question is, unfortunately, yes. I think that there's a great deal of pragmatism in Washington and in European capitals. There's a fear of widespread instability on the eastern Mediterranean. Lebanon borders Syria, is home to many refugees, and is teetering on the edge of financial collapse. So in many ways, the West just wants to put a lid on the crisis in Lebanon or prevent it from escalating. However, the Prime Minister Mikati did not meet the aspirations of the Lebanese, who have been taking to the streets now for almost 2 years, demanding better governance, demanding an end to corruption, and demanding, frankly, to have new blood in the political system in Lebanon. This, as I said in that tweet, this is a reinvention of this same political establishment that has governed Lebanon at least since the end of the civil war in 1990, the so-called Second Republic.
Let's just get back to that original tweet that I read out, because, by the way, folks, Firas has got a great tweet thread today. But you say, with minor exceptions, this was formed by the very politicians vilified and rejected by the popular protests, which toppled two previous cabinets. And then you go on to say Hezbollah still looms large, directly and through allies. You've just explained that this is likely to be a cabinet that the West can work with, not a cabinet that the Lebanese people is going to be impressed by. But this line here, I want to interrogate. Hezbollah still looms large directly and through its allies. Just explain what you mean by that.
Well, first, Becky, let me point out that it's quite an irony that Beirut, which has been known as the cultural capital of the Arabs, a cosmopolitan hub on the eastern Mediterranean, the new Lebanese culture minister is Hezbollah, belongs to Hezbollah. And, we all know what Hezbollah represents in terms of the Islamic Revolution in Iran and its aims to spread beyond its borders. Now, I do think that the West does face a difficult policy dilemma in Lebanon. On one hand, they do not want to rubber stamp and give credibility to a government and a political order that is beholden to Iran through Hezbollah. But on the other hand, there's this urge for stability and to avoid further chaos. There is also a powerful argument put forward that Iran and Hezbollah stand to benefit further should there be a full economic and financial collapse in Lebanon, because Iran has taken advantage of instability throughout the Middle East. And for those reasons, I think in that tough policy dilemma, the West is going to come out on the side of actually working with this Lebanese government.
Does the West have a genuine concern about the danger of Lebanon becoming another Afghanistan from international community negligence?
I think the answer is yes. I mean, I've heard this from American officials time and again. There is a need, as perceived by Washington, to avert that worst scenario. Now, unfortunately, Lebanese politicians know that very well and have taken full advantage of that over the course of the last 13 months it took to put this cabinet together. Essentially, the message from the Lebanese oligarchy is, it's either us again in a different form, different faces, new names in the cabinet, but it is us. It is the Hezbollah beholden corrupt political order in Lebanon, or it's total chaos. And there is an understanding that the West has an aversion to total chaos and therefore will choose to work with them.
Let's be clear, for those watching this show who don't follow Lebanese politics as closely as you do, there is an election next year. This is a government that effectively will take us through to a vote. And you have tweeted today, the West must insist on a free, timely vote next year, vocal support for genuine reform, and threaten sanctions on those in power to enrich themselves. Is that likely at this point? Because there are genuine stakeholders in Lebanese politics who are not going to want to see any of the above.
There is no guaranteed outcome that true reformers, those people who we have seen take the street time and again in Lebanon, will emerge victorious in the upcoming. There's a municipal, parliamentary, and eventually presidential elections. So next year is going to be a pivotal year for Lebanon. But I do need to highlight that although that movement, civil society in Lebanon, definitely lost this round, they did not get the people they needed to see and wanted to see in government. They still need to work and come together, mobilize, organize in the lead up to those important elections. I do think that there is pressure, there ought to be pressure from the international community to hold this current government to these constitutional deadlines, these constitutional commitments. These elections must be had on time. And then it is going to be up to the Lebanese people to, at least if not win, make a significant dent, significant inroads into parliaments, into local government and municipalities. And I have to say, recent elections at the level of association and trade unions have been quite successful for Lebanese civil society. So not all is lost. There is hope, but a lot of work ahead for the Lebanese.
Firas, it's good to have you on again, sir. We'll have you back. Thank you very much indeed.